Do you guys care about what other people say about you?
Unfortunately, yes.
I tell myself
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's hard not to.
it's hard not to internalize it. Yeah.
It gets you at the beginning.
Yeah.
And again, depends on how you process it and where it's coming from.
And
Who's
I
that
find the
other
people that
person?
say that they don't care are the people that care the most, right? They'll start off saying, I don't care what people think.
Oh, no, you
right?
cannot
And
not
then like
care.
2 sentences later, they're like, all they're doing is basically justifying like what the other person said.
Yeah.
is like
Yeah,
the
it's
truth.
clearly they thought
Exactly.
about it, dissected it.
I think the
Have such an
best way to
opinion.
do it, if you could have a mental list of these are the people I care, and whatever their feedback is, I would care, and the
Yeah.
rest I do not care. Once you get to that list at a
Good
point,
point.
Yeah.
then it's easier. It was, for me personally, it was not easy every time. Yes, it bothers me. I care, and to the point I'm like, how much that person matters in my life. If I'm talking
That's a
about
good
outside of professional life, that how much it matters. Then it becomes easier. Okay, you know what? Whatever being said doesn't faze me. But if it's somebody from your inner circle, inner close people, then obviously you. It's a hard one to process,
Yeah.
and how you handle it. And when it comes to professional life, it's getting rid of those noises. That brings productivity up. So it's natural that to care. It's where it's coming from. Eliminate those. If you could process it, that's when you're at the best place. That doesn't matter.
I'm glad everyone said that they care because that would have been a sign of someone's like lying.
Lying
I
or like a sociopath.
well, I like I haven't really met anyone really. I've met
Admitting?
some people that are pretty good at like not caring as much, but every single person I met, like they do care, right? And a lot of people have, not most people, everyone has insecurities, right? So, and especially if you hit on those insecurities, that's when you care the most, right? I found that most people, you know, whether they admit it or not, they do care what people say about them. And it's such an easy thing to say that, okay, you shouldn't care and just move on, but it's not easy.
It's
right?
human nature.
It's
You
human
can-
nature, right?
You cannot just put a band-aid on it and move on. It would bother you. Your question is how far do you let it go, and how far you let it bother you. That okay, it's and how fast you overcome.
So you mentioned, which is a great technique, like make a list, whether it be a physical list or a mental list. Probably a physical list is better just because it's more clear, right? But who does that? Maybe you do.
Mental list, I do.
Yeah. So you make a list of like, okay, these are the people I generally care about, right? And these are the people I don't care about, right? So if you make a list,
I don't care.
That would be too long of a list.
yeah. Well, this is the thing.
Maybe you just make the list of who you care, then everybody else.
Everybody else.
I love it.
Everyone else by
That's it.
default.
Now, what happens is, like, because I find the people that are kind of lingering are the people that you care about, but they don't care about you, right? And that's the tough thing where you want to be friends with them, you want them to be closer, and whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Those are the people you're chasing, right? And often those are the people that are giving you the most stress because there's not a equal set of expectations on both sides. One side cares, other side doesn't. The other side keeps chasing for that validation or whatever the case is, and you're just going to let yourself down. So as much as I love the list idea, I think it's a good way of handling it. How do you cut someone out where you say enough's enough and no, they're not really worth it for me?
I think it depends on like what they're saying to you. So if it's like negative feedback in your office and on your project team or whatever it is, but that feedback is not coming from your boss, it's coming from like an external team member that like you rarely work with, that's easy to cut out because they don't work with you regularly, so they don't know you, they don't know your skills, they don't know what you're capable of, they've only seen you in this one like tiny capacity. And if you're not striving to be in that role that they're currently holding, then like why would you ever need to internalize what they're saying about you or to you or the feedback? Because like it's not a goal that you want to be in their role, so why why care? Kind of.
But
It's
I
so-
think the
it's so easy-
professional life, it's
Different
different,
than personal.
because you might
But
not
should
have.
you care about every single person that you
Not
come
that
across?
you should care. Do you want to show you don't care?
No, not at all.
And second thing is that if that person is not within your immediate group, other team, we do not know when I would need them, or I do not know when I would be part of that team, or I will be working with them. So it's challenging at a workplace. You still cannot do that list that I was talking about earlier. Cut them out completely, because in professional life, you don't want to burn bridges. Your network is important, and those people you might cross paths.
Well, I think
Well,
it's
I'm
easier-
not saying like tell them to fuck off. I'm saying like if you don't like that feedback they're giving you, or if they've said something rude to you or something,
Yeah.
and you don't have to work with them that often, like think about it, like chew it around in your mouth and then spit it out or swallow it, whatever. But
Well, I think it's easier. Let's talk about personal life, because I think it'll be a
Okay,
bit
yeah.
juicier there. Because like the professional life, I think is an easier one. You know, like yes, you're working with them every day. Now, if I think another human nature thing is the more you work with someone or you're interacting with someone in a personal life, the more chances they're going to be the ones that you basically care about.
Yeah.
You know what
Right.
they're saying about you, right? Now, in terms of personal life, how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure everyone has that, where there's people in their personal life that they say something and you can't stop but reacting to it, right? You can't help but thinking about it and trying to prove them wrong, or go and try to pick a fight with them. Like how do you handle that?
okay, I do this one thing that 3 people have now pointed out to me, and it is that I pause in sentences, and I'm trying not to do it right now. I pause like mid-sentence because I'm trying to pick the exact word to use, because I'm really, really trying to think about like what I'm trying to say. But there are 3 people in my life who hear the pause and they're like, oh, she's done talking. Okay, now it's my turn. I'm going to start talking now.
That's why you want to. That's me. One of the people is probably me.
Oh, and I do it to other people too. I'm like, well, not now because I'm actively aware that this is like a thing that comes up. But and also like I've watched Tony Robbins and all of the people who tell you that pause for dramatic effect.
Right.
Yeah. The
And
aha moment.
The aha moment. Yeah, exactly. But I've had people in my personal life who are like, oh, you just stop talking sometimes.
But shouldn't they know that that's a personality trait?
Right? Okay.
So
Well,
Keisha, I want to hear
bring
your
it back
thoughts.
to that argument then.
How do you handle this in personal life? You have people that you want to stop caring about.
I guess I look at where they fit in my life. And it's funny, I saw something pop up, and I've heard it before, where people in your lives are like a tree. You have the roots, you have the branches, and you have the leaves. And the leaves are like on a tree, they're there for a season and they'll fall away. The branches, the longer they're
Love it.
with you, they'll grow and get stronger. There's some branches you don't want to go out too much on the limb because they're going to break. And then the ones that have been there a while, they'll get strong. And then you have the roots who are there. They're supporting you. They're there to hold you up. So I will look to say, where does that person fit in my life? Are they a leaf, a branch, or a root? And I will decide if they're a leaf. Yeah, I mean, I internalize things. So they could say something that initially I will care about. But once I process what has been said, I see, is it coming? Where's the place that it's coming from? And then I'm able to let it go based on who they are. But if it's somebody who's really important to me, I'm gonna really take that feedback and see, like, is it something that I can change? Like, whatever the thing is. So it depends on who or where it's coming from.
Sounds very logical, but I've never seen many people able to execute that. Right. So
It has taken me time.
Yeah. So this is the way I look at it. What's the most beautiful thing about a tree? The leaves, right? I love your analogy because it's really, really smart. I'm going to try using
It
it.
is a good one.
So what happens is you chase the leaves, right? You seek validation from this cool friend or this person, and they don't like you, right?
Or
And
they're not.
prov-
It's
and they're proving it over and over again.
Yeah.
But you know what most people do is like, I got to make them like me. And you're chasing, right? But they're a leaf, as you mentioned. They're just going to change every season, right? But that's not how humans work, right? They want, the tree trunk is not exciting, right? It's there, they need it, and the tree doesn't exist without it. But you look beyond that, right? The branches are pretty nice, but they're not nice as the leaves, right? So how do you handle that? How do you stop yourself from chasing after leaves, as you put it, or how do you stop yourself from chasing after people that you should just move on from?
It takes time and maturity and knowing your value and your self-worth and recognizing that those people aren't good for you. Like I had a friend, and I use the term loosely. When I first came to Canada, going to Sir Johnny Macdonald Middle School, which has now been renamed. That's another topic on our podcast if you want to hear about that. And she was the first person to embrace me, and we stayed friends throughout high school, up even until university. But I would hear from people, and I thought she was cool, and I liked the fact that she was the first person to speak to me when I came up from Jamaica. But I would hear from other people that she would say things about me, but I would never believe it. And then whenever there was an opportunity for her to put me down, she would.
Isn't that the hardest though? Like that's
Yes.
that's what I was trying to get at. And that's a
Yes.
great example, because I
Yes.
think that's what people struggle with, right? And that's the toughest one, where you liked them, you cared about them, and maybe they're not the leaves, they're more the branch, right? But one of the branches that fall off, or maybe they were there for a long time, but a lightning hit them and it falls off. How do you handle that? Because that is tough. I've faced that. I'm sure most people have faced it, where there's some close friend, right, that you thought highly of and you cared about, and over a period of time you realize that they're not really who they are.
Yeah,
They say are.
Yeah.
Like sticking to the tree analogy,
Yeah.
which I actually love.
Yeah, it is a great one.
Let's say like a lightning bolt, strikes one of your branches off, and you had identified that branch as like really important to like who you are, or whatever it is.
Where you want to be, maybe.
Who you want to be.
Right.
Yeah. Or how you identify yourself with. I think like literally a tree would pull its resources, go back to the roots, go back to the trunk, recruit new leaves to start creating photosynthesis and new chemical reactions, and pivot and perhaps not regrow a branch, but like mold into a certain other way. And
Everything
that's like
sounds
how
so
life
great on
works.
paper, but it's just so hard to do.
Yeah,
It is hard to do.
Yeah.
It's
not
a
gonna
pretty
be easy.
analogy.
It's
not
it
easy.
comes with maturity. It comes
Yeah.
with experience, and
Yeah.
you know what else it comes with?
Yeah.
How many times you get
Burned.
burned.
Yeah.
Hey, yes, exactly.
More you get burned, more mature
Yeah.
you become,
Yeah.
and more experience.
But I think you
have.
still fall for it, right?
No, absolutely.
And
Eventually
and
I
I'm gonna
stopped.
ask you guys something, and don't take offense. Do you guys feel females are a bit more vulnerable to this?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, I don't know.
I do. But, it took me until I was like in my early 20s to realize when people they don't have my back.
Yep.
They stick around because they kind of want to see what you're doing, and they just want to make sure that you're not doing better than them.
That's exactly it. So a lot of
Right?
people are friends, and they're there with you as long as you're the number 2,
Yes.
or number 3, or number 4. But as soon as they see that, hey, they're number 1 now,
Yeah.
they can't stand it. Meaning they were never a friend, right? They just like the
That's the
val-
like toxic invasive species
But
that comes
I've
in.
But
and-
you will not
happens
sense
over
it
and
while
over
you're
and
in
over and
that
over again.
friendship, where
Yes,
in that
you don't
relationship,
sense it.
you will not
No.
sense it. Everything would
that's
sound
tricky.
rosy, that, oh, great, and everything. Relationship changes. One of the big reasons that relationship changes is miscommunication.
Of course.
And second thing is that when what's in the previous topic we talked about what's acceptable today, what's not acceptable in later time.
Right.
The relationship we have today with someone, looking back or moving forward, it'll be totally different.
Right.
And that's when things become complicated, and that's where you come back to your mental list.
Right.
It matters.
Yeah.
It's part of the tree, which part of the tree it is? Do I keep it there?
Yeah.
Or I move on? It's very hard to say move on. And the problem, another challenge with that is, the relationship is not in isolation. There are other people associated with that same relationship that you have good relationship with, and then we come in this. Alex and I, we are not in the same part of same trees anymore, but somehow in social settings we're sitting together. How do we deal with this?
Right.
Right.
And that's where uncomfortableness, that's where the all those problems becomes like, okay, how do I deal with it? Do I storm out? Do I become a big person and just a big boy and
Yeah.
go with it, go
Yeah.
with the flow, don't say anything? I used to be the person I was itching to say things.
Yeah. To fight
Right.
back and like
Fight back,
yeah.
I have to say things. And slowly I'm like, okay, you know what? It's not worth it.
Right. Right.
I feel
It's-
like that's the way it goes. So like imagine if the first time you ever heard something negative said about yourself or to yourself, you were like, I disagree. I'm that confident in myself. You're like 10 years old. No, I no longer want you in my life because you've just said that.
Funny, quick story. So my daughter, when she was in the 2nd grade, she had this little friend who, and again, after seeing in my experience when people aren't for you, right? But these are parts of growing up. So she had this little friend and sometimes they got along, sometimes they would argue. And one day she came home and she said to me, Mommy, I don't think such and such is really my friend. She pretends to be my friend, but I don't think she's my true friend.
That's mature.
And I said, why do you say that? She goes, because I feel like if I get something wrong or if I get in trouble with a teacher, she actually is happy about it. So I don't think she's my friend.
Right.
And I said to her, you recognize a characteristic in grade 2 that it took me until my 20s
Sure.
to recognize.
Sure.
Right.
And so
Well,
she-
I think a lot of people
nurture
recognize
that
it,
skill.
Keisha,
Yes.
but what happens is they
They just-
deny it, right?
yes.
They're like,
Yeah.
no, it's probably not. Like,
It's a phase.
yeah.
Something
Yeah,
happened.
or maybe and so that is something that's prolonged, right?
Yes.
And even when someone's like stabbing you in the back, you thinking of all the good
Denial.
times and you deny it and and they're so good. Some people are so good at like, playing the disguise.
Yeah.
Where they keep kind of like, sweet in front of you, but like, stabbing you in the back every time, sabotaging you and
I think the question is, how many red flags do you allow?
Yes.
Right.
Right.
But do you think, like, because in that moment,
Yeah.
I could have said to her, I not even listen to what she's saying. And I think when I think back to my own childhood, I was taught to brush things off. You're taking
Right.
things so seriously, like, oh, they don't mean anything by it.
You're misinterpreting.
You're
it.
misinterpreting. And so I said to her in that moment, if trust your instincts. If that's how you feel, then you should deal with her and decide if you still want her to be your friend,
Right.
or you can decide how good of a friend she's going to be. And I think she still carries that logic with her, because my daughter doesn't have a ton of friends. She's not the one that needs a lot of leaves. I needed a lot of leaves because I needed to feel like that validation.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think it was because nobody ever said to me from when I was little, like, what you think and what you feel matters. So if you think somebody doesn't care about you or think negative of you, I think you have to start reinforcing from young, like, assess who those people are.
Right. So this is gonna be a tough one, because I think we gave a lot of textbook kind of ways to handle it, but it's
The
just
reality-
so
re-
difficult to
reality
do it.
is-
But we always encourage you guys at home to to really look at the people in your life, see if they're worth it or not. Professionally, it's a bit easier. Obviously, it's not easy, but easier. Personal life, it's more difficult. So I think if you follow some of the tips that we provided, it might be easier, but I know it's just tips and it's easier said than done.
It's going to take practice.
Yeah.
And time.
It's
Takes
gonna take
practice,
and
takes time.
Yeah.
Have, love yourself, right? And I think one of the big things someone taught me is, like, when someone talks badly about you, it's probably something that they dislike about themselves, right?
Their
So-
own insecurities.
Their own insecurities, right? So again,
Easier
way to
said than done,
easier
yeah.
said than done,
Yeah.
right? And every word hurts, but we encourage you guys to keep working at it.